Sir Cliff Richard, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Feels like 150 years, but funnily enough, it seems to have gone rather quickly. But I have been very fortunate in my career, and I can remember those early days when people really did fling themselves at the stage. And nowadays, it's more like fun, because my audience has grown up with me, and fortunately, there's enough people who are coming in, probably dragged along by their parents, who end up enjoying it, and therefore come the following year too. And when you get the screaming now, it's not the same way, but it's just as loud.
A lot of people of your generation become old-fashioned and become cliched, but you always seem to stay contemporary. Is it the people you work with that keep you modern? Is it your desire to still be successful now? Why are you sat here and others aren't?
It's all of that's true, really. I have to have the need and the desire to do what I do, and then I have to find people who know what they're doing. And so, for instance, when I'm making records now, my records are as contemporary and as good, I think, as anybody else's, because I use the same writers, the same producers, the same technicians, definitely the same technology. And so, in a way, technology has been a fantastic influence on our industry in particular, because we all have the same base to jump from. And I like that now. I like the fact that one can still compete. And there's no reason why you should be trapped in the past. I don't dislike the past, though. In fact, when I go on my tour, the forthcoming tour will have a little bit of everything. I never, ever go on stage without singing something from my past. Why? Because it's part of people's memories. It's only fair to sing it for them. I don't sing Living Doll every single time I go on stage, but I probably could. But I'm fortunate in there's a whole batch of oldies that were big successes. So maybe I'll do Summer Holiday and Living Doll and a few others one year. And then the next time I go on tour, I'll do Bachelor Boy and Gee Whiz It's You and I Could Easily Fall. So I'm able to split it up. It just means that when you come to a concert of mine and you're wanting me to sing something, I may have done it 2 years ago and therefore I'm not doing it this time, I'll do it next time. So it's just one of those things. But I love to sing the new things as well. So when I go on tour, I try to do it all.
Now, I believe you're in your mid to late 30s now. Is show business as fun now as it was when you were in your 20s?
I think it's more fun. When you remember back to the start days of rock and roll, way back in the 50s, of course, nothing can compete with the excitement of finding yourself doing an audition for EMI Records with the Norrie Paramore, whose name you've seen on green labels, conducting orchestras and being producer. That was so exciting. What that period doesn't compete with is what we've been given to how we deal with our careers now. Technology, the stage presentations that we can put on are so superior that once you become a known artist, what you need is a way of performing. You need to be allowed to perform, and technology has allowed us to perform in a way that we couldn't do in those days. So in that respect, I still think that I prefer it now, but I wouldn't change any of the past. I'd leave it as it was. It was very exciting as it was.
Is the excitement from the thrill of the crowd any different now to when it was then? I mean, how do you deal with the excitement of going on stage? Is it all in your stride now, or are there still those nerves and that feeling of excitement like there was in the beginning?
I don't know that you can ever take anything like this in your stride, because you spend most of your time thinking, I don't deserve this. How am I still here? How come Marty Wilde is not still singing? Because mind you, I think he still does concerts, but why am I doing all these big things and he's not? Because when I think of Marty and people like Dickie Pride, they seem to be so much better than I was when I was younger. I was just a greasy slob. I think I just got lucky, met good writers, got good songs and producers, and then found, yes, I can do this. And then I've had to work really hard to sustain it all. But what was your question?
The excitement and the thrill of going on stage.
Yeah, the excitement is still there, and I can never take it in my stride. It's because probably as you get older, what happens is you appreciate it more, because you're thinking to yourself, I didn't think I was going to last like this. I thought I might have one. In fact, there's a great quote I was shown just today where I said to a reporter, I thought I'd be all over by the time I was 21. And now I'm 21. I think I can get to, I think I'll be going when I'm 25. So that's the way we used to think in those days. You never thought of longevity, but it came and I grasped it and worked at it. And now here I am after all these years, and I'm still able to compete in some senses, I can use that phrase. The playing field's not the same as it was, but I can still make records. I've got my duets album coming out. I'm going to be on this tour coming out where I'm going to go not only over Britain, but I'm going to tour on in January, February, March into the Far East, to South Africa, back down to Europe again. So here I am doing what I did 150 years ago, and it's lovely. I like it.
The buzzword today is X Factor. And when I look at someone like you, is it more important to have a personality and good looks than to have great records, or do you have to have both?
I think it starts with the record. You could actually be an unknown and ugly, and have a great record that hits. It's more difficult, I suppose, if you don't have a stage presence that's what's the best way to say this? It helps to be youthful. It helps to look youngish. Even if you don't look great, you can look young, and that's all part of the imagery of rock and roll. So therefore, the two really should go together. And the funny thing is, when I think about it, most rockers, even if they may not be seen as Brad Pitt or, whoever you want to quote from the good-looking guys on movies, you'll find that they have a look. It's not necessary to be the archetypal handsome young guy. You just need a look. And most rockers, we find a look. Because when I look back at early pictures of myself, I don't think I was really good looking, but I certainly had a look. I had a look. There was definitely a look. I didn't look like other people. And that really counts for something. Although, funnily enough, now, I often think when I'm walking down the street and I see young people, they all look the same to me. They all wear the baggy jeans. They've all got the same color chops. They wear the hats around the back, the hat around the side, and a red T-shirt or whatever it is, and all look like cast-offs. And so I don't know where that's gone. When I started, first thing I did was look around at what everyone else was wearing and decide not to wear that. And I went out and I was the first person, I'm the first bad taste dresser in rock and roll. I got pink jacket, black shirt, pink tie, fluorescent pink socks, grey suede shoes and black trousers. And I changed the color. I went from pink to white to mustard yellow. It's all just fun, but I always wanted to look different. And I still find myself thinking, I don't want to look like that. I want to look different. And I try to find things. It's harder and harder, of course, because, fashion and design has become a big thing. And nowadays, most people can afford something, even if it's not the real fashion designer name, they can certainly get pretty darn good copies of the stuff. So it's harder to look different now, but I still think that's the preference. And that's why having a voice that is acceptable to the public is vital, but how you look as a person is also vital. There is something about the way you present yourself as a rocker that counts.
I hear what you're saying about being unique, because I'm different looking, clinically obese, ginger hair, and no fashion sense. What's the difference then? How do you become unique and good, or just odd?
Girls screaming at you. And now I can take myself out of the equation, but when I was 18, for instance, the first time I sang Move It on television, they didn't scream at me. It was the pilot show, and they screamed at Marty Wilde. He was on the same show. I believe he was on the same show. Anyway, we were early. They didn't scream at me. Move It got to number 2, and the next time I appeared, they screamed at me. So, the audience is just as affected by things. It is a psychological thing. Oh, this is the new person we scream at. And you can come into fashion. It's how to hold on to that moment and make it last that I'm realizing now is what takes the hard work. And the screaming isn't done in the same way. When a 16-year-old screams, there's a different kind of scream. It's that their passion is so great. Nowadays, I think women now scream because they can still scream, and I'm good fun to scream at. Why not? But in the end, what really counts is after the screams die down, are they still applauding? And if they are, I'm a winner. But if they're not, I just have to go home disappointed and work harder tomorrow.
Okay, we're going to play some records from your new CD, which is called Two's Company. And in this CD, you're basically taking great songs and performing them with great artists. The first question I'm going to ask you is the impossible one. Which song is your favourite from the new album?
When you sing Anyone Who Had a Heart with Dionne Warwick, and she's sitting beside you, there's no way I can explain what it feels. I try to write it on the sleeve notes, a very simple thing. I have never got used to hearing my voice played back. I still get a kick. When I'm singing it, recording it, I can't wait to, I always say, can I come in here? Can you? Then they say, no, can you do it 3 or 4 more times? And then when I've done it 10 times for the producer, they let me come in and hear it. And I still get a kick. Now, can you imagine adding to that the feeling I get about hearing myself, because I can't get used to that.
Just a couple of questions about making this CD. When you're recording with someone like Elton John or Barry Gibb or Sarah Brightman, as is the case with this new album, is it still uncomfortable, even though you're Sir Cliff Richard, meeting people who are as famous or more famous than you?
Yeah, it is. I think it is. I mean, I don't know that you ever get used to meeting people who have celebrity, but because you have your own, you're on a level playing field, and so therefore you can come in and it's a little more comfortable. When I first met Jerry Lee Lewis, I was really worried. How do I look? Someone took a picture of us. Well, he's going to look like rock star, and I'm not going to look like rock star. But once you have your own celebrity and you're comfortable with what you are and where you are and who you are, you can meet people. But you know, I liked singing. I loved singing with Elton, and that's part of the pleasure of it, to actually share the moment of creativity with another artist. And that's how it happened. The whole album's like that. The goosebumps factor is how I work on things. When Bruce Welch came up, we were about to do the album I'm Nearly Famous. I had been given Devil Woman about 18 months before, and I had it in my hot, sweaty hands thinking, can I do this? Will my fans allow me to sing a song like this when they've got used to me singing Summer Holiday and stuff like that? And so I presented my song to Bruce, and he presented me a whole batch of songs, and he said, look, but this one, listen to this. And he put on the tape of Dave Townsend, who wrote the song, Miss You Nights. Well, we stood on my balcony in my house. It was a lovely day, actually. We were leaning over the balcony, and the music was really loud. And I said to him, look at my arms. He said, look at mine. He said, all the goosebumps, all the hairs on the arms were all standing up. And the hair on the neck had all gone. We don't do that often enough. We don't allow our emotional instinct to say, oh, gotta record this. I just heard a remix of one of my songs. The song was called Can't Keep This Feeling In, and done in a real fantastic remix, bass, and other voices going, can't keep. They never used the melody at all. They used 2 lines, I think. Now, this is my big contention. I would like to work with some of these remix people, but I would insist that they finish the song. It's no point in having a song like Miss You Nights where you only have, but these Miss You Nights, boom, get more, hey baby, but these Miss You Nights, yeah, hey baby. To me, it's just lost everything, even though you may like the sound. When I heard this track, I thought, it's me. The sound was fantastic, real black, soul, everything was there, but the song wasn't. So I mean, you know, I've got all strong feelings about that, but I don't know how I got into that, but I liked it.
Let me put a call into Eminem and see if we can get something going between you and him. Maybe a brand new thing could get you off in the States again. And what do you think?
Fantastic. I'd have to choose the songs though,
right?
And he could do the music. Well, I haven't been wrong with my songs, and he's not been wrong with the music. So maybe the combination will be good, because sometimes we get trapped into, oh, he does that, or he does that, she sings like that. No, most of us have got other things that are dying to come out. Now, what you have to do is learn to be honest and say, when I did that, it wasn't as good. Okay, it may not have been bad, but it wasn't great. So if you're at least honest with yourself that way, you can end up with a whole bunch of songs that you like, but also liked by other people. So it's not a bad idea. That actually, I'd love to. If anybody wants to do that, phone me.
All right, let's hear the song then, Miss You Nights by G4. Very quickly, will we ever get to hear this live with you and the guys?
Well, it's always possible, but you know, when I did the album, I'm going on tour now, and there's no way I can expect all these people to be available for me on tour, but I couldn't afford them for a start. Can you imagine what it would cost? It would be ridiculous. We'd have to play to 100,000 seaters every night full, so and still not afford them. So it's just not feasible. So I'm not even sure if I'm going to sing Miss You Nights, but I probably will have to. I've tried not to sing it and been abused in the best possible sense of that word. They are so upset when I don't sing it. So I might have to put it in. But I think I'm going to sing Ocean Deep, which is it varies. Sometimes Ocean Deep is their favorite song, and sometimes Miss You Nights. So because I sang Miss You Nights on the last time, I'm going to try doing Ocean Deep and hoping that will be all right for them. But if they want it back in, I'll do it. I don't mind. That's a great song to sing anyway, but I can't get G4 to be with me. So I'm going to do, for instance, things like Anyone Who Had a Heart, not with Dion. I mean, look, if she was in the city, or even if she was at the gig, I would certainly ask her to, and if she felt she could do it, then we would do it. But So I'm going to do some of the songs with my backup singers are 3 fantastic singers, and I've just added a girl who's a very good singer too. So I can sing the girl duets with her and the boy duets with my guys. I mean, these guys can sing me under the table. So there's no problem with that as far as I'm concerned. We'll be able to make a good job on it.
Whenever I do these programs, I get inundated with thousands of emails with silly questions to you and I, but questions that your fans want to know. So can we just go through some very quickly, and then we'll please them. I'll make them happy, and then we can get on with the show.
Absolutely.
Right. Your favourite meal?
Oh, I still think it's hard for me to top a good Indian curry and rice. I mean, it's become even better now because you can now have aubergines done in all sorts of different ways, brinjal. And I love a good dal, taka dal. So for me, that's always going to be one of my favorite meals. But of course, it's not something, I don't think you can eat it regularly. I mean, it's too fattening. So I would give myself a treat of that once a month, but it still remains my favorite.
Your favorite meal to cook at home?
Oh, I like doing a leg of lamb. I mean, I'm really good I'm a meat and 5 veg person, and there are all sorts of ways. Again, when I talk about Brussels sprouts, people go, "This is Brussels sprouts." I say, well, leave it with me. I've got a great American book called The Silver Palette or something like that, and it's got a recipe for Brussels sprouts, which is still boiling them, but they do a glaze made of what do you put on pancakes? Maple syrup, mustard, vinegar. It's a sort of sweet sour thing. It's absolutely fantastic. So you can do. I love doing all that sort of thing, and it's easy to do. It's not a difficult thing.
Are you a good cook?
I'm good at that. I'm not quite sure what I'd be if I was trying to do what some of the designer chefs do on TV. Although, funnily enough, on TV I've noticed now that they're much more accessible. The kind of menus they cook there now. You think, well, I could do that if I could just remember what they did. And of course, you can always go onto the internet and get the stuff. You get the recipes and how to cook it. But yeah, I think I would be a good cook because I know what I like to taste. And I'm one of these people that if someone says you put 2 onions into this, I would put 4 onions. I'm always adding. And then if I taste it, I think, oh, the red wine is going to taste. I just put it into my own tastes. So in that respect, I'm adventurous as well.
All right, we're going through Cliff Richard's favourite things. Your favourite song ever?
Oh, it's impossible for me to say. I mean, I for a start, I've forgotten all the songs I've heard in my lifetime. It's just impossible. One of the ones that I used to like was a Fleetwood Mac song. Don't stop thinking about tomorrow. That's always been one of my favorites, but I couldn't even say that's my favorite because I've got a feeling that there are other things that I like certainly as much. Well, Missionites as well. That's a song that it's like singing Honey. So there's a whole bunch. I don't know.
What are you playing at the moment in the car?
At the moment, I'm playing one track I like a lot. It's a guy called Joe Bonamassa. It's called High Water Everywhere, and it is the best guitar riff thing I've heard in the 150 years I've been singing.
Your favourite film of all time?
Do you know, at the moment, I think my favorite film was the Russell Crowe Gladiator. Before that, it was Blade Runner, Harrison Ford. But I think I've now seen Gladiator. Although there's one other though. I've seen Gladiator now probably about 6 times, and I know the story. We all know what it was about, but even still seeing it, I found the emotion of the storyline of this man in the end really trying to reach his wife. Even though when he did reach her for the first time, she'd been killed, he still went on into death to find her. I like stories that can touch you, and those kind of things touch you over and over again. But the other one that I just remembered is Groundhog Day. That's the one that I've probably seen more times than any other movie that I've ever been to. And every time I watch it again, because it's, most people know what Groundhog Day is about a man who wakes up every day at exactly the same time and the same thing happens to him day after day after day. And because he does, he becomes aware that that's going to happen, and he knows what's going to happen next, and he can sometimes change that. And each time I've seen it, I thought, I didn't see that before. It's a fantastic movie. Well recommended.
All right, we're answering listeners' emails today. Ask Cliff. This can be a new feature, can't it? Your favourite comedian?
Oh, I think probably as a comedian, Tony Hancock. I used to be an avid listener of the programs when they came out on the BBC way back. I think they're now available on DVDs, CDs certainly. But I've had tapes of them for years and years and years. But he was very, very special. Somehow his humor went with his own personality, but he used his personality to create this character that was so lovable and yet so nasty sometimes. You wonder how it worked, but it did, and so he would be definitely my number one.
And the final email that always comes in when you're on the programme, will you ask him, will he marry me?
Yes, if you're prepared to wait a while.
Let's talk about show business generally, because when you started, it seems to me there were more personalities and variety performers, the Bruce Forsyths, the Ken Dodds, people like that. Are we ever going to see another generation of those types? We've got Anton Deck and we've got Peter Kay, and we've got Robbie Williams, certainly in your league, who's selling out the huge arenas, but they seem to be few and far between compared to years back, or is that not the case?
Well, no, things change, though. You can't. It's a bit like saying, would Federer beat Rod Laver on the tennis court? I mean, it's impossible to tell. They play different styles of tennis. If Rod Laver played the way he played and Federer plays the way he does now, Federer would win. Love and love. But it can't work that way, because Laver was playing what he needed to play, and that's how far the game had gone. And Federer has had all those years of other people's experiences, finding new techniques and everything, and stamina and food and diet, and then he's there. So in the same way, the world has changed. Alternative comedy came in, and for me, it never appealed to me. I found it ugly, aggravating, and vindictive. And I could never laugh at that. And that's why when I mentioned Tony Hancock, there was a nasty edge to this person that he played, but he was never always the winner. And yet somehow or another he could make you laugh without being embarrassed or upset in any way. And I think they've lost that. I may be wrong, but I'm not an aficionado of comedy. But that changed. Until you allow people to be personalities with their humor, how are they going to replace Hancock? Stand-ups will always be there. Stand-up comedians, who some of them, I mean, we probably not see half the really good ones. They're probably just touring around doing what they do. That's always going to be there, isn't it? But if you want people like the Hancocks to come in, then Peter Kay and the others have got to do what he did. But why should they? Why should they want to be like him anyway? If they can make their own way and win their way into our hearts by doing it some other way, fine. But it's changed. I think there's just as much comedy going around in the country as there was then. But as you're saying, and I agree with you probably, that there's not many of them coming out in the way that they came up in those days. But there again, the playing field's sloping a different way now. Perhaps we don't need them the way they were.
Final question for the moment. If you could have dinner with anybody, who would it be?
Oh, there's a whole number of people, really. I mean, when I used to think about who I'd like to meet most, I met them. I wanted to meet Mother Teresa and I wanted to meet Billy Graham, and I met them, and they were both fantastic to meet, really fantastic. You know, I'd like to meet Ridley Scott. I mean, I've seen so many of his movies and enjoyed them. In fact, one of my videos, which was my pretty one, was based on a Ridley Scott feel. You know, I told somebody that's what I liked, and the director did it. You know, you'll see that show, that song. It's all got petals flying by the camera all the time. You know, Ridley has this thing of creating the image of like past primitive times where seeds that fly through the wind are constantly passing the screen, and it's fantastic. So I'd love to meet someone like that and find out how life works for him. I mean, I'd like to find out what he's like as a person as well, because it's hard to know whether you're actually getting a piece of Ridley Scott. You must get a piece of him because he's the one that's actually creating what you finally see. But there are so many other things that are between him and us: the actors, the scenery, the music. That's all done by somebody else's personality. So, you know, he's one of the people I'd like to meet. I'd love to meet Brad Pitt. You know, he's one of the actors that's come through where, you know, he came through as a heartthrob. Girls loved him. But I found that I could watch, you know, when I watched the Tibet story, the 7 Years in Tibet, I watched him as an actor, and I thought, oh God, it was so gentle and really thoughtful. So if you're going to be in the company of people at dinner, I suppose they're the kind of people you'd want to meet. Now, having met him, would I want to meet him again? I don't know. He might be an absolute pig, but I don't think so.
All right, let's take a penultimate piece of music and we'll be back with our remaining moments. It says here you've done a song with Matt Monro.
Yeah.
How?
Well, in the way that Nat King Cole sang with her dad. You know, I found that quite moving as well, the fact that she sang that song. And And it's just a matter of we had to find a recording of Matt's that was on multi-track. There weren't too many of those, of course, because he'd started singing when it was all on mono. Everything was on one track. We found, but I saw the titles, and they said, look, you've got this fairly small collection, but these ones are available, and you could stick your voice in here. And I always liked that song. That was a Nat King Cole song, I think, Let There Be Love. So I thought that's the way, and his wife was happy that I should do it. And again, obviously I wasn't going to meet up with Matt. Matt died, unfortunately, some years back. But I'd always been an admirer of his. I liked the way he sang. It took me years to really understand what those kind of singers were doing. When I started singing, we didn't, not verbally put down, but in our minds, Sinatra, Crosby, Matt Monroe, Dickie Valentine. Oh, no, rock and roll is the way. As I grew older and gave myself time to listen to Dickie Valentine and Matt Monroe and Frank Sinatra, I realized, wow, these guys, they really knew what they were doing. Their voices were not like ours. Now, of course, ours weren't like theirs. I mean, we use our voices in different ways. But I saw what work must have gone in to control that vibrato and make your voice sound that pure. And so for me to get a chance to sing with Matt is terrific. Now, I still use my kind of singing voice. I change it a little, only a little, but not much. I wanted to match what he did, but not be exactly like him. And when I heard it, we realized he was singing live as well. Because once you opened up the track, you could hear all the clicking and clacking beforehand. The orchestra was waiting to play, and he sang that live. So it was just wonderful to put the two techniques together. So in actual fact, therefore, the two people that I didn't actually sing with are Matt and Anne Murray.
Earlier on this year, I had the pleasure of interviewing Frank Sinatra Jr. at the Palladium, where his father's musical was being staged, where his father sang live every night to a live band. But of course, he wasn't there, and it completely freaked me out. And I asked him how he felt watching it, and he was perfectly fine with it. Isn't it a bit odd singing with someone who's dead?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's art, remember? And so if you have respect for somebody, it's almost a privilege to think, I wish I'd sung with Matt. Well, now I can say I have. And so in that respect, it's a completely nice thing to do. And it is I did want to show a sign of respect for him. One funny story is, some years ago when I was, long before Rod Stewart did his album and before Robbie did Quit While You're Swinging and did jazzy things, I had started compiling an album of stuff. And I thought, what kind of songs would I like to do? And one of mine was Matt's song, Softly As I Leave You. The other was a Cole Porter song called Every Time We Say Goodbye. So I'd started work on it 9 or 10 years ago, but they beat me to the punch, so I've put mine on the back burner. I'll do it later. But Softly As I Leave You was recorded with, I did it with the London Philharmonic, and it got terrific reaction from the fans. And Matt heard it, so it was a long time ago when I recorded it. And his wife said to me after Matt had died, she said, "You know what? That was his second favorite version." Because his favorite version was his own. And having heard that, I thought, well, that was a really funny thing for him to say. Oh, that's my second favorite version of that. So I was really pleased. So it was obviously he'd heard what I had done with something that's really connected with him. It's a bit like Move It or Miss You Nights with me. It's connected with me. Not that other people shouldn't sing it. People remember it as being yours. I would always think of Softly As I Leave You as being his.
Is it fun being you?
Yeah, it is actually. It's better now because as you get older, you get confident and you feel no fear, rightly or wrongly, other than when you go on stage for the first time of a tour. I mean, whenever a tour starts, I always have panic moments. You've done what you can to rehearse it, but will you remember the dance step? Will you sing it in tune? Will you fall over? Will the band fall over? There's so much on your mind and so much there that you're terrorized by it. And so for the first couple of shows, I tend to be fairly nervous. But once that initial nerves have gone, it's pure enjoyment because I'm working with gifted musicians and gifted dancers. How can it not be nice? It's a fantasy come true. So I still enjoy it, and I enjoy it more. And that confidence, though, that I was talking about is not only about the performing side of it. It's about how you face the press, how you face what you feel is going wrong, how you feel about the way you're treated. You become less intimidated by it, really, and you think, shrug your shoulders and say, oh, don't want to play my records? Well, tough luck, your loss, and move on. I couldn't have done that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but I feel like it now, so I'm very happy with the way and where I am.
So what was the turning point then that made you come to terms with it and think, I'm actually bigger than all of this?
Well, it's not a matter of being bigger than everything, because no one's bigger than everything.
No, but to be able to rise above it and think, you know what, you can't hurt me anymore.
Well, the press were very helpful in that because they seem to have taken on... Well, no, I'm generalizing here. This is not true of every journalist. Please don't believe that. But you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of journalists that will write things about you, having never met you, and being really rude about you. And I find that really still painful, that you have no comeback, no way of saying, no, I didn't mean that. I didn't say that. You didn't talk to me. Why don't you ask me what I think? And then I suddenly thought, what am I doing? I'm having sleepless nights because somebody I don't know has said, made up a story about me. And that's helped, really. I think to myself, I think I probably will continue to have sleepless nights. But at least now I'm thinking to myself, it doesn't really matter, because in the end, they write something that nobody cares about. Otherwise, I would be a dead artist by now. So I think to myself, that's a comfort factor. So you can grow above it. I think it's impossible to lose the sensitivity that makes you human, which means that anybody that says anything nasty about you or me or any of you listening, and you find out about it, even if it's said behind your back, it's still going to irk and hurt. And you'll want to put it right if you can. That's human nature. So I think I'll always be affected by them, but not in long term. In long term, my mind is made up. If they never wrote another word about me, I'd be thrilled. But there again, having said that, I need them as well. I need them to talk about me. And if they talk nastily about me, I'm hoping my fans will read through all the crass rubbish and get to the facts. And hopefully they'll do that.
I think one thing that has really helped you is the invention of the internet. You have so many websites where your fans communicate. I mean, this program will be talked about for months. They did with the last one we made. They literally tell each other where they can hear it at what time. They tape it and send it to each other. I mean, it's a fascinating community of this huge number of people that suddenly are able to communicate. And as soon as anything comes out, they're there and they know about it. So as much as the music industry's changed where you might not get as much airplay, they're still talking about you anyway. So it almost doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. Of course it doesn't matter. But, you have to remember that my life began because I was a recording artist, and I still think of myself as a recording artist. Now, why do you make records? Well, you make records for yourself. Yeah, that's true. You make them because you want to hear them and like them. You make them for radio, and you make them for the fans. It's pretty well in that order because that's the way it goes. You make them, they hear them, they buy them. So when they remove one part of that away and make it pretty now impossible to actually sell records to any great extent, it's very tough on a humble recording artist like myself. But as I say, you have to learn to get past it. Now I'm past all that. I can speak about it without I'm not irksome about it. I don't even want to, I don't need to talk about it. You brought this up. So it's just one of those things that happens. So you can get by. You can find other ways of presenting yourself. I hope my duets album will be one of the things I'm talking about, where I'll still better make records. It won't be quite as innovative or creative as making an album full of brand new songs. The best album I've ever done for the last 20 years is definitely the last one, and not the best seller I've ever had. Something's Going On is a really good pop rock album with a country influence that's innovative and it's original. And I miss that. I'll miss that. If I can't do that ever again, I shall miss it. But I'll still be able to get in a recording session. You know why? Because there are thousands of songs that haven't been heard sung by me. And I've got enough fans who might want to hear that, and I'll take the gamble and do it. So yeah, I can still get my satisfaction. But you were talking about what affects you and how you grow above things. In the end, you have to philosophize and say, am I going to die without airplay? No, whoopee. No, whoopee, it won't. But I'm over that. And I find that as life goes on, you get over things and you're able to continue the pathway that you've always trod. But perhaps you've had to leave a little bit of the rucksack behind, and I'm still doing basically what I want to do, and it's very pleasurable. And I wish radio good luck, because I'd like rock and roll to continue, and it really does depend on them.
Few things before we go that has changed, of course, is Top of the Pops has now gone. Downloads through the internet seem to be more popular and important now to the music industry. Do number ones even matter now?
What you've said seems to be absolutely right. When you think how it's changed and how quickly it's changed, 1999, Millennium Prayer sold 1.4 million. A few years later, 3 or 4 years later, Elvis is number one, remember, and it sold like less than 30,000. Not Elvis's fault. That's how the business has changed. So you have to say, whoops, this is all gone. Now, okay, then now you can still be in the charts. You can have an internet chart. I mean, in point of fact, if people download a track and they have to pay for it, and thousands of them do it, and you find yourself number one in the internet chart downloading. Is that much different to having a single out? Yeah, in some respects. You don't get a nice sleeve with the photograph on it, you don't get any information, you just get the music. On the other hand, it could be the demise of the album, couldn't it? Because why would you record an album? People don't really download albums a great deal. The big downloading is the odd track that they like. So in other words, it might be easier in some respects in that someone like myself can record one track, find one great track, like my new Christmas song, which I think is really good. One Christmas track, and just make it available on the internet. But here's the big problem. How would they know to punch in Cliff Richard Christmas song when they haven't heard it? How do they hear it? My main problem is, how do they hear it? Okay, when I'm on tour now, thousands of people will hear me sing my new stuff and my new Christmas single. Now they might download it, but that's not the numbers that's going to take it to number one. So it's still a problem, but the internet's the future. Now we got to get around this. We have to find a way. How do people download if they stop listening to the radio, which I assume one day they will. Everything changes, so radio, beware, get ready. They're going to listen to something, although I suppose it'll still be radio stations that are only pumped through the internet, and people just pick out what they want from the internet. So no, radio will continue, and long may it continue. But it's still a problem for the artist making records. It means that the market will get smaller and smaller and smaller. If in fact we can only download what we hear on the radio, it'll be incredibly small. Whereas when I bought my records in the early days, there were thousands of rock and roll artists and jazz artists. During the course of a week, you'd hear them all on radio, and you would decide which one to buy, which direction to go. So there's lots of changes that I don't like, but I'll get over it, and the business will continue. But radio is really important. They've got to keep playing the music, whether it's mine or anybody else's, doesn't really matter now. But if our industry is to survive, it's gonna have to be played. So, and they'll always play somebody. So maybe I will suffer demise from the record industry, but the industry will continue, and that's what's important, I guess.
So Cliff, it's always a thrill and an honour talking to you, and you're always so generous with your time and your answers, and people just love hearing from you. So thank you so much for doing the programme today. Good luck with everything, and let's play this Christmas song because it's just a great Christmassy feeling song. What about this one then? Is this as good?
Well, I think it's a different type of song. When I recorded it, I said I wanted a much more I wanted a sort of rock and roll, a good, solid, clacky guitars in the background. We've got the kind of belly sound in the vocals, but the lyrics are what make it. The melody's good. There can't be rap because I don't speak it, but it's a spoken song, and I love the lyrics are interesting. The whole thing about the satellites tracking Santa. We text our Christmas list. We leave our phone numbers just to help out old St. Nick. But it still comes back, but tonight we'll still thank Bethlehem. And we're going to enjoy this 21st century Christmas. So I love the idea of the combination of what's happening today. The technology is there. Yeah, we do have satellites and it can track Santa, but we can still come back and relive our past and see what's important in life, that we will wish peace on earth for men. And if ever we needed that, we need it now. So it has everything in its favor. In the end, Alex, how do you decide what someone else is going to like? You can't. You can only decide what you like. You put it out and hope. Your fingers and everything you can cross tightly and hope that they will capture what you got from it. And if they like it, they'll buy it.
The Alex Belfield In Conversation podcast with daisymedia.co.uk.